Stop before you click away. Today I have something very special. I've gathered the best and most terrifying stories I've read on Reddit. From the famous community r/nosleep on Reddit, stories that left me in utter disbelief. So I need to warn you. What you're about to hear is not a game, it's not fiction. This actually happened. In real life, I spent hours searching for the best horror stories on Reddit, and I finally found 3 truly terrifying true stories, so watch the video till the end. Until now, if you get scared easily, leave. This is your only warning. But if you're brave enough to stay, it will be one of the scariest stories you will ever hear in your life. Before we start, subscribe to Mikey HR and hit the like button. If you haven't watched these 2 videos, you've missed out on a lot. You can watch it on the channel after this video. I spend hours finding these stories so you don't have to. It takes 2 seconds, and it means everything. Now, turn off the lights. And let's begin. Story 1. I'm a police officer in a small town. I've stopped trying to make sense of the calls. Yes, that does sound very cliche, but I don't care. It's true, I've been on the job for about 12 years. I've been patrolling this town for about 3 of those years. I'm not going to say where the town is because I do not want to face any backlash from the higher-ups. The department has opinions on what gets talked about. Just know that this town is a place where everyone knows everyone. If anything interesting happens, expect everyone to have heard about it in 20 or so minutes. When I first started working in this town, I treated it like every other place I've worked at. I was friendly, but stern when I needed to be. I wanted to make everyone feel safe and like they could reach out to me if they needed. That would have been fine if this place was normal, and as you could have guessed, it's not. Things happen here that if they were to happen anywhere else, it would be all over the news and internet. Everything here is kept in-house, for the most part. Occasionally we do get help from a nearby church and psychic, but those are stories for another day when I have a lot more time. For now, I'll just touch on a few of the weird happenings that occur here. I guess I'll start from when I first got transferred here. Oh yeah, coming here was not my decision. It was kind of a voluntold situation. It was strongly suggested that I come here because of how I handled chaotic situations in the past. I was under the impression this was a step in the right direction for my career, a way to get in the boss's good graces. That was my first of many wrong assumptions when it came to this town. Want to hear about my first day? Of course you do. You wouldn't have gotten this far otherwise. I was excited about the change in scenery. It was a fresh start for me. So when I strolled into the precinct that first night, I had my head high and a smile plastered across my face. The first thing I noticed was how oddly quiet it was. There was no desk officer sitting behind the desk, and the sergeant's office door was closed. I awkwardly made my way to the locker room to put on my freshly pressed uniform. It was there that I had my first interaction with someone who works here. For story purposes, we shall call him Officer Brad. Actually, no. Steve. We will call him Steve. Steve was an older cop. He was what we like to call a salty vet. He would get bothered real easily over nonsense. He had just finished putting on his gun belt as I was walking in. Trying to make a good impression, I went up to introduce myself. Hey, how's it going? I'm Chris, just transferred in. It's my first shift. Steve looked at me with zero expression on his face. I'm talking not even an eyebrow raise. After what felt like 30 seconds, he finally responded. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, off to a great start, I thought. Huh, yeah. How is it here? Anything I should be aware of? Yes, lots of things you should familiarize yourself with. I was waiting for the second half of that sentence, hoping he would tell me what to get familiar with exactly. Instead, he just kind of brushed past me and walked out. I figured he was just counting down the days to retirement and chalked up him being an asshole to that. After finding my locker and putting on my uniform, I headed back toward the desk to try and locate my patrol car keys. To my surprise, there was still no one seated behind the desk. Every place that I've worked at, it was mandatory to always have someone behind the desk. You needed someone to dispatch, receive calls, or handle walk-ins. But here I was, standing alone at the desk. I figured I would try and find the sergeant. As I approached the office, I noticed something that wasn't there before. There was a note taped to the door, keys in visor, car parked out back. All right, I said to myself. I headed toward the back door, expecting to run into some more cops at the very least, but it was like no one else was in the building. When I reached the patrol car, I was let down, to say the least. The car was in horrible shape. Dents on the body and scratches on the window. Guess that's what you get when you work in a small town, I thought. I opened the door and sure as shit the keys were in the visor. I put the keys in the ignition and the engine coughed to life. I turned on the car radio and pulled out to the road to start my first shift. Before I continue with details from my first shift, I want you to understand how strange this all was. Normally, when you start your shift, there is a roll call. Think of it as attendance in school, basically a way to make sure you are there. There is also post assignments that are supposed to be given out. None of this happened. Not only did none of that happen, but when I say no one else was in the building, I mean no one. Not just desk officers or supervisors. I'm talking no other cops. Besides Salty Steve, not even a cleaning crew. Once I had my keys, I really just wanted to leave that building. Night one was pretty quiet for the first half. Not a single call. I actually thought my radio was off or broken with how quiet it was. I even tried keying up the radio just to make sure it worked, and it gave an audible beep, which let me know it was in fact working. I was about 3 hours into my shift when I heard the radio go off. Unit 1 on the air? I didn't answer because I had no idea what my post designation was. I thought maybe it might be somebody else. Unit 1, come up on the air. Radio silence. Chris. I wasn't expecting that. No one has ever dispatched me by my first name. It was always officer, insert last name, or my post. I fumbled the microphone and responded. Go for Unit 1? Yeah, that's you. Got a job for you. Copy, go with it. Head over about 2 blocks. You'll see a blue house with its porch light on. A man will be waiting outside for you. He called 911, stating his wife isn't feeling well. EMS is about 5 minutes out. Check and advise once you're on scene. Roger, show me responding. I arrived on scene 5 minutes after dispatch sent me. There was a man standing outside of a blue house, flagging me down. I put the car in park and walked over to the house. Evening, officers, thank you for your timely response. Sure thing, what's going on? It's my wife, she's sick. It started out as a cold, but it's gotten a bit worse. Oh great, let me be her hero and grab her a tissue box. I see, is there anything else? Is she throwing up? Anything that requires immediate attention? Nope, just that, officers. Just not feeling well, but I would really appreciate if you could go and check on her. All right, the first time I brushed it off. Why was he saying officers? It was only me. No one else was on scene. She's right inside. Bedroom is the first door on the right. The lights in the house were on, but dim. Before I stepped inside, I radioed over to dispatch. Unit 1 to dispatch, I'm on scene. Gentleman is stating his wife isn't feeling well. I'm going to step inside and make sure she's okay while I wait for EMS. No response from dispatch. I took a cautious step inside and headed for the bedroom. As I approached the door, I felt the husband walking slowly behind me. I stepped to the side. Why don't you lead the way? You know your house better than me. Surely. He stepped in front of me and reached for the door handle. Fair warning, she's a bit tired. She hasn't been able to get much sleep with this damn cold. Got it, I responded. As the door opened, I could see the bed was disheveled. The blankets were thrown about and the pillows were on the floor. With that being said, I didn't see this sick woman. All I saw was an empty bed. As I stepped into the room, I was immediately working up a sweat. The bedroom was so unbelievably hot, and it was like stepping into a sauna. I asked him where his wife was, and before he could answer, I heard someone behind the door. I'm right here, silly. I jumped out of my skin, not expecting a sickly woman to be on her feet hiding behind a door. Jesus, what the hell are you doing? She frowned. I can't sleep. She responded in a childlike voice. Okay, ma'am, I'm going to need you to sit down on the bed. EMS is coming to evaluate you and help you out. Oh, let's play a game. Up for some hide and seek? What the hell was going on? This woman who was supposed to be sick was not only standing up, but pacing around her room, all while her husband stood idly by, just smiling. I'll hide first, and you have to find me, the woman said. Her eyes were open as wide as I've ever seen. Oh, she's really good at this game. She always picks the best spots. You guys could never find her. What the fuck was happening? This had to be some sort of new guy hazing. It had to be. Either that, or these people were out of their fucking minds. The woman sprinted out of her room, giggling and screaming, "You'll never find me." Go on, officers, find her before she finds you. She hates when you don't play the game right. Yep, nope, I got the fuck out of there. I 100% ran back to my car and radioed dispatch to send another unit. Just as I had finished my transmission, EMS pulled up. Do not go in there. This woman is batshit crazy. EMS just stared at me. You're new here, huh? What? Yes, well, no. New here, not new to the job. It doesn't matter, I know fucking crazy when I see it. Nah, they do this. We will give her a trank, and this won't happen for another week or two. And with that, EMS entered the house, and I sat there in shock. Sure enough, a few minutes later, they were back outside and heading back into their truck. You'll get used to it. A lot of weird shit happens around here. Just understand that this was a tame incident. Yeah, got it, thanks. See you, Chris. That was the first night of my time here. As you could imagine, I definitely have some more stories. If you're interested, I'd be happy to share some more. Story 2. I work at the Unclaimed Baggage Center in Alabama. I know what really happened to Flight 702. Do you know how many pieces of luggage are checked onto flights each year? I'm talking in the whole world. It's 4 billion. I'll say that again. 4 billion. And of those 4 billion, do you know how many pieces of luggage are lost, damaged, or otherwise mishandled by airline personnel in the good old US of A? 2 million. Won't repeat myself again, but that's still a lot. And while most of those suitcases and rollers are eventually reunited with their rightful owners, there's still over 20,000 pieces of luggage that go unclaimed each year. Not to mention bags left on buses, on trains and taxis or hotel rooms. Okay, last question. Where do you think all that lost luggage ends up? Most folks couldn't tell you, but when you're a kid growing up in northeastern Alabama, you know exactly where it goes. the Unclaimed Baggage Center. Around Scottsboro, we just call it unclaimed baggage. Every year, thousands of customers pass through our doors looking for deals on clothes, electronics, jewelry, and just about anything else you can imagine. Before any of that stuff reaches the sales floor, though, it comes through us. I work in intake. When a truckload comes in, we're the first people to touch it. We unload the bags, log them, sort them, and decide what can actually be sold. Most bags are boring. Sure, you'll get the occasional wedding dress or taxidermied squirrel, but really it's just lots of clothes and chargers. I say most bags because some bags get flagged, and not because of drugs or weapons, because they contain things no one can explain. Ask anybody in intake. They'll have a story. My girl, Tammy, found a passport from a country that doesn't exist. The Republic of Veer. It had a flag and everything. Cody swears on his mama that the same blue Samsonite shows up every year around Christmas. Not the same model, the same suitcase, same cracked handle, same missing wheel, same four-leaf clover sticker peeling off the side. Last year it was full of ladies' wigs. Year before, empty picture frames. Cody's a nut, though. He moved away after the thing with the postcards. My story started with Flight 702. Well, it started with a suitcase, actually. I didn't find out about the flight until later. It was July. Humid. The kind of weather where your shirt's sticking to your back before you even finish your coffee. I was working the receiving dock when the truck backed into Bay 4. The driver, Trey, was a buddy from back in the day and unfortunately an Auburn fan. While we unloaded, I took the opportunity to remind him the Tigers didn't stand a chance against Bama that year. Then I rolled the first pallet of suitcases inside. For each bag, the process was always the same. Assign a lot number, slap a sticker on the side, then line it up all nice and pretty like for the next guy. And that's what I was doing when I noticed the bag. It was a roller, seafoam green. Looked like a kid's bag. But I'd seen a million of those. What really caught my eye was the condition it was in. Beat to hell, like a pack of wolves had used it as their own personal piñata. Deep gouges ran all the way down one side and dark rust-colored stains coated the wheels. Now, airlines damage luggage all the time. This wasn't that. I tried the zipper. It was crusted shut, so I grabbed the cutters from my workstation, busted a new seam, and pried the bag open. At first it looked like standard issue kids' fare, books, pajamas, a stuffed unicorn, and a camera. A cheap-looking, unicorn-themed digital camera, to be exact. I found the power button and turned it on. You may think I was being nosy, and that's fair, but you'd be amazed how many times we're able to reunite a bag with its owner because of some tiny detail in a family photo, or hell, a name scribbled inside a coloring book. Plus, I am nosy. Back to the camera. The first image was of a young girl smiling, a gap-toothed smile, straight into the lens. Couldn't have been more than 8. The next, taken from the back seat of a car, showed a middle-aged couple in the front seats, eyes on the road ahead. The mom looked annoyed. The dad looked lost. The next 3 were of nothing in particular: a shoe, a passing billboard, the roof of the car. The 6th picture was of an airport. The girl stood next to an old sedan filled with luggage, a unicorn backpack slung jauntily over one of her shoulders. A giant glass and concrete terminal loomed behind her. She looked almost impossibly happy. "Cheese," said a voice beside me. It was Brian, one of the new guys, striking a ridiculous pose for the camera. He had already earned a reputation around the store as a complete goof. I pantomimed snapping a pic of him, then looked at the screen. "Sorry," says Too Ugly. "Ha ha ha ha. he said sarcastically before noticing the bag at my feet. Oh shit, that thing go through a wood chipper? I shrugged. Tell me about it, and Brian headed outside for his own pallet. I turned my attention back to the pictures. The girl was inside the airport now. There was a shot of the ticket counter, the departure screens, and one of a grumpy TSA agent at security that made me chuckle. The next photo was of the entire family at their gate. Must have been taken by another passenger. The girl was still smiling that same smile, while her parents wore the relieved expressions of folks who were ready to start their vacation. The screen behind them said, United 702, Orlando. I figured they were going to Disney World. That'd explain the girl's smile. The following pictures documented the family's journey down the jet bridge, past a blonde flight attendant with bright red lipstick, and to their seats at the rear of the plane. Wait a sec. I scrolled back to the picture at the gate. Flight 702. The number tugged at something in the back of my brain. I'd heard it before. Just then, Brian returned with a fresh load of luggage. Brian. Yeah? Flight 702 mean anything to you? Brian scratched his head. Pretty sure that was the Orlando flight. What Orlando flight? He looked at me. The one that crashed. Now I've heard people say their blood ran cold, but I'm telling you, at that moment, my blood might as well have had ice cubes floating in it. Hey, you all right? Yeah, I stammered. Just need a little air. I couldn't get outside fast enough. 1,000 thoughts were running through my head all at once. As soon as I turned the corner of the loading dock, I pulled out my phone and did a search. The headlines came rushing back. United Flight 702 crashes near Nashville. NTSB investigating catastrophic engine failure. Children among 238 dead in United crash. I felt like I was going to pass out. That little girl, her parents, all those people on the plane, they were all dead. Then another thought hit me, something that really got my head spinning. What was their bag doing here? I found my supervisor, Shelley, in the break room, futzing with the coffee pot. Hey, Shell? Go for Shell. Is there like a protocol or something for when we get bags from, I trailed off, steadying myself against the counter. The heck you trying to say? From plane crashes, I spat out. For when we get bags from plane crashes. She stared at me like I'd sprouted a second head. We don't. Never. Not in the 17 years I've been here. Her eyes narrowed. Why? I was just curious. Weird thing to be curious about. I forced a laugh and returned to the warehouse floor, convinced I had been imagining things or misread the flight number or... The camera was still sitting on top of the open bag, just where I'd left it. I picked it up and navigated to the next image. But the next image wasn't an image at all. It was a video. I hit play. The camera was pointed out the window as the plane picked up speed and lifted off the runway. Whoa! It was the girl's voice. Hearing it made my heart sink. The camera swung around and settled on her parents in the seats beside her. Her dad winked and said, "Hold on to your butt." The girl laughed. The video ended. Before I knew it, I'd hit play on the next one. The girl was in the lavatory now. She waved at herself in the mirror, then focused in on the toilet. She pressed the flush button. The air whooshed, and she giggled, delighted. My hands were shaking. Watching the final moments of these people's lives play out on a 2-inch screen felt wrong. I wanted to warn them, like if I screamed, "Stop! Turn back!" at the top of my lungs, then maybe somehow they'd get the message. The next video picked up right where the last one left off. The girl pushed open the lavatory door. She was moving through the galley when a nasty-sounding cough drew the camera's attention. It was that same blonde flight attendant with the red lipstick, sitting all hunched in her jump seat, with a paper towel balled up in her fist. "Are you okay?" the girl asked. "Yes, fine, just a little air sickness." The flight attendant managed a smile. "Do you like chocolate milk? Our drink service is starting soon?" The girl must have nodded because the flight attendant smiled again and the video ended. More photos now. Clouds, the seatbelt, Hemispheres magazine. With each press of the button, I hoped I'd reach the end, but the images just kept coming, and I couldn't look away. Another video. The girls' parents dozed in their seats. The camera turned toward the front of the plane, showing rows of seat backs and passengers' heads, and the blonde flight attendant working her way down the aisle with the drink cart. She stopped at the girls' row and fished out a carton of chocolate milk. "Just for you," she said. The camera zoomed in on the carton. Thanks." Then the girl tilted the camera back up. And that's when I saw it. A thin line of blood ran from the flight attendant's nostril and down into the corner of her mouth. She didn't seem to notice. "Your nose," said the girl. The flight attendant frowned. Then she touched her face. Her fingers came away red and, for a moment, she looked genuinely frightened. She grabbed a napkin from the cart, pressed it to her nose, and hurried back up the aisle quick as anything. "The hell?" I replayed the last few seconds of the video. The blood. The look on the flight attendant's face. A real strange feeling started forming in the pit of my stomach. Then a Nerf football hit me in the shoulder. "Blue, 42. It was Brian again. He was squatting over a duffel bag full of sports equipment. He threw another wobbler at me, and I swatted it away. "I hit you right in the hands. You gotta catch that." "Not now, man." He clocked the camera. "You still messing around with that thing?" "Yeah." "Find out who it belongs to?" I hesitated. "Maybe." Brian smirked. "Hope they ain't expecting it back." He didn't mean anything by it, but I could feel my face getting hot. "Yeah," I muttered. As soon as he was gone, I pressed play on the next video. I wish I hadn't. The camera bobbled as the girl climbed over her sleeping parents and lowered herself into the aisle. Up ahead, the flight attendant disappeared into the galley, pulling the blue curtain shut behind her. The girl paused, probably gathering her nerve. Then she started creeping down the aisle towards the galley. All around her, the other passengers were sitting snug in their seats, eyes glued to their screens. The weird thing was the flight attendant's feet were still visible beneath the curtain. They hadn't moved. The girl took another step, then another. Bong. The camera jumped. Then the captain's voice on the intercom. "Folks, if you look out the left side of the aircraft, you'll be able to see the Cumberland River winding through downtown Nashville." Our girl just kept moving forward. She was only 10 steps from the curtain, lens trained on the flight attendant's feet. A passenger stood to get something from the overhead bin, and the girl had to squeeze sideways to pass. When she refocused, the feet were gone. 5 steps now. 3. The girl's thin hand reached out and pulled the curtain aside ever so slowly. The area directly behind the curtain was empty. Just the lavatory door and another curtain leading to business class. The camera peeked around the corner into the galley. The flight attendant's jump seat was empty. In fact, the entire galley was empty. The camera floated for a beat, like the girl was unsure of what to do. Then she must have seen something because she zoomed in on the floor of the galley. It was a pool of blood. Drip, drip, drip. The camera pulled back, searching for the source. The jump seat? No. The counter? No. With shared dread, I watched as the camera tilted up towards the ceiling. The flight attendant was up there, pressed against the hull of the plane like a spider. Her face was turned away from the lens, and for a second, neither she or the girl moved. Then the flight attendant's head began to turn. Her eyes were black, completely black, and when those dark pits settled on the camera, I swear, she was looking at me. Blood pooled at the corners of her mouth. Drip. Things started happening really fast now. The picture whipped around and took off down the aisle, bouncing so violently I could barely make out the passengers, jerking upright in their seats. Then a sound. Oh my God, that sound. It was like a cross between a woman's scream and metal being torn in half. The cabin lights flickered and bong. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, speaking too fast for me to understand before dissolving into static. Then the whole cabin lurched hard to the left. The image rolled sideways, then snapped towards the ceiling. Oxygen masks dropped and dangled. Luggage rained into the aisle, and the flight attendant's pale form scuttled across the overhead compartments on all fours. Now everyone was screaming. The picture blurred, tumbled across the carpet, and came to rest just inches from the seafoam green roller bag. Then a window exploded and the world turned white. The video ended, and I just stood there. All around me, the warehouse kept humming along like nothing had happened. Eventually, I left work, told Shelley I was getting a migraine. Truth was, it did feel like my head was going to split open. I drove to Scooters in a daze. After my 5th beer, Carrie gave me a ride home, and I fell asleep in front of the TV. The next morning, I was pretty sure I'd imagined the whole thing. Flight 702, the flight attendant. It felt impossible in the cold, hungover light of day. But I had seen it, hadn't I? That's when I decided I needed to show someone the camera. I got to work early. Most of yesterday's luggage was still in the warehouse. Any items of value would have been cleaned, priced, and set in the staging area, waiting for the floor staff to arrive. I scanned the shelves for the camera. It wasn't there. I checked the salvage bins. Nothing. I saw Shelley pulling into her spot and jogged over. "You look like shit," she said as she cut the engine. "Thanks," I deflected. "Hey, did you happen to see a little unicorn camera that came in yesterday?" "Yeah, what about it?" I let out a sigh of relief. "Where is it?" "Some lady from the airline came by yesterday looking for it." She brushed past me. I struggled to keep up, panic rising in my throat. "A lady? What lady?" "How should I know? Some blonde lady." "Tell me you didn't give it to her." Shelley stopped walking. "Why do you care?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Shelley stared at me. "What'd you expect me to do?" She said it was hers, and the poor thing sounded awful, so... Awful how? She couldn't stop coughing. Shelley started walking again, but I stayed rooted to my spot, unable to move. Weird thing was she didn't care whether the camera worked. I looked up. Just wanted to know if anybody watched it. "What did you tell her?" Shelley pulled open the warehouse door. "Brian said you'd been looking through it, so..." She shrugged. "I told her you had." Story 3. We were given one rule before entering the abandoned subway line. Do not whistle. I've spent 6 years working as a maintenance tech for the city's subway system. When I first started, I thought the job was simple. swap out burnt-out light bulbs, check the wiring, patch up the occasional water leak. But working down there in that thick, absolute darkness teaches you something real quick. The underground doesn't play by the rules of the surface world. It belongs to a much older, much more brutal reality. My name is Tyler. I didn't take this job out of some romantic love for the underground. I just needed the money, and the pay was good. While normal people walked under the sun during the day, I'd lose all track of time in the tunnels. Down there, there's no daylight, no clocks. There is only sound, and sometimes the terrifying absence of it. My partner was Miller. He was about 10 years older than me, his hair prematurely graying, his skin permanently stained a dusty subway gray. He knew those subterranean labyrinths like the back of his hand. The strangest thing about Miller was that he never asked questions. It was like he knew that not asking was a hell of a lot safer than hearing the answer. I used to think he was just a coward. Later, I realized it was pure survival instinct. The day they assigned us to the Black Line, the usual locker room chatter instantly died. That name wasn't a joke among the transit workers. It was always spoken in hushed, careful whispers. It was a tunnel system built in the 1920s, shut down after an unexplained cave-in, wiped from the official maps and stamped as non-existent. Officially, there was nothing down there. Practically, well, rumors said, lights flickered in the dark and strange noises echoed out. Sometimes, the guys sent down there just never came back. Our foreman called us into his office, tossed a yellowed, faded blueprint onto his desk, looked us dead in the eye, and said just one thing. There is only one rule down there. Absolute silence, no talking, no joking around, and for God's sake, whatever you do, do not whistle. I smirked. Miller just nodded. Like everyone else, I figured it was just some old workplace superstition. Acoustics, gas leak risks, pressure differentials. My brain immediately scrambled for a logical explanation. Human beings love inventing logic because it's easier than believing in an unknown looming horror. But the Black Line doesn't care about logic. Me, Miller, and two other techs, Jackson and Lee, were riding a rusty, ancient utility elevator down into the dark. The lift rattled and groaned, shaking as if something beneath the earth was dragging us down into its maw. The air was heavy with the smell of ozone and wet, rotting iron. Jackson looked down at his phone screen and snickered. Man, if they have Wi-Fi down here, I might just move in, save a fortune on rent. Lee gave a nervous laugh. Stay down here for 10 minutes, and you won't even remember what the word Wi-Fi means. Miller didn't laugh. He just leaned against the metal wall, chewing on an unlit cigarette, his eyes glued to the elevator doors. I looked over at him. You're always this quiet? He shrugged. Silence is part of the job down here. Jackson grinned and leaned forward, his voice echoing off the metal enclosure. So what you're saying is, if someone calls my name down there, I shouldn't answer. Come on, that's just rude to the subway goblins. Miller's gaze turned ice cold. Pray that nothing calls you. The entrance to the Black Line was a heavy, riveted iron door. The faded red paint scrawled across it looked like dried blood. Restricted access structural instability. Jackson slapped the iron door. Classic. Every cheap horror movie starts exactly like this. Lee swallowed hard. Yeah, right before the monster jumps out. We unlocked the heavy deadbolts. The door groaned in protest as we shoved it open. Inside there was no sound. No dripping water, no airflow. just a total crushing void. It felt as though sound itself had been strangled and left to die in that tunnel. Jackson stared into the blackness, pursed his lips, and suddenly let out a sharp, piercing whistle. The sound sliced through the tunnel like an arrow, stretching out into the dark before slowly dying away. "I swear this place is just an empty parking lot," Jackson laughed. In a flash, Miller pinned Jackson by his collar, slamming him hard against the brick wall. "Do not whistle." "What the hell is wrong with you, man?" Jackson shoved him off. "Who's gonna hear us down here, the rats?" Miller didn't answer. There was deep, paralyzing terror in his eyes, far worse than anger. He slowly turned around and began walking into the dark. The first few hours went by with standard maintenance work. The beams of our flashlights barely cut through the gloom, illuminating thick clouds of dancing dust. Everything seemed normal. Suddenly, Jackson dropped his wrench. He stood up straight, freezing in place. "Hey guys, I think someone's calling me." Lee let out a tense laugh. "Who's calling you?" "The collection agency." Jackson shook his head, his face completely pale. "I'm serious, there's a voice coming from further down. It's saying my name." From behind us, Miller's voice cut through the dark, cold, and ruthless. "Keep working, do not look up, ignore it." By the time our break rolled around, we were all exhausted. We sat down in a small concrete electrical cutout. Even as we pulled out our lunches, everyone tried to keep as quiet as possible. Even Jackson had gone silent. But then Jackson pulled a pair of orange foam earplugs from his pocket and tried to stuff them into his ears. Suddenly, Miller lunged forward and snatched them right out of his hands. "What is your problem?" Jackson snapped, jumping to his feet, his voice echoing loudly in the cramped space. "Don't put those in." "You don't own my ears, man. My head is pounding. I just want some damn quiet." Miller stepped into Jackson's space, standing inches from his face. He spoke so quietly, his words felt like dripping poison. "It is dangerous to be deaf down here. Sound comes into this place, but it doesn't leave. Do you understand? If they realize you can't hear them, they will come closer." A suffocating silence fell over the room, and then, from right inside the concrete wall we were leaning against, came a faint sound. Tap. Jackson whipped his head around. "Did you guys hear that?" Tap, tap. This time it was closer, clearer, like someone was striking the concrete with something hard and solid like a bone. Then something else happened. A voice drifted in from the distance. It sounded human, but the words were garbled, mangled. It sounded like someone trying to speak while choking, their mouth packed with dirt. The voice grew clearer. "We're here." Every hair on my arm stood on end. Lee took a step back, his flashlight trembling violently in his hand. "No. No way. Is this real? It's just an echo of our own voices, right? Jackson, tell me it's a radio interference." Jackson stepped toward the wall, looking completely hypnotized. "Who's out there?" he yelled. "Stop!" Miller lunged to grab him, but he was too late. Jackson pressed his ear right against the freezing concrete. 1 second. 2 seconds. The expression on his face shattered. His smirk vanished, his eyes dilated with sheer horror. "They say they know us," he whispered. "What are they saying?" I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would burst. Jackson stared blankly into the void. "It's my mom's voice. She's calling my name. She's telling me it's so cold inside." Miller grabbed him by the jacket and violently threw him to the floor. "What the hell are you doing?" Jackson shrieked. Miller leaned over him, hissing through gritted teeth. They don't want you, they want your answer. You just gave yourself to them. Behind the wall, the noise erupted. It wasn't just one voice anymore, it was several, maybe dozens of people, whispering, letting out wet, raspy laughs, scratching their fingernails against the concrete. The tunnel was drowning in the sound. We were completely surrounded. Then, instantly, it all stopped. Like a knife, cutting a thread, a dead, suffocating silence fell over us. Our flashlights began to blink and sputter. And from the exact center of that darkness, from the deepest point of the tunnel, a sound came back to us. It was a sharp, short whistle. The exact same whistle Jackson had let out hours ago. But this time, someone or something was whistling it back at us. Incredibly slow, incredibly deliberate. Jackson's jaw trembled. Tears began streaming down his face. This is a messed up prank, he whispered, though he didn't believe his own words anymore. Lee bolted toward the exit. I'm getting the hell out of here. Open the door. Miller grabbed him by the arm, locking him in place. His hand went down to the heavy iron pipe wrench on his tool belt. Staring straight into the blackness, he said something I will never forget. Do not run. Not yet. If we move now, they will play with us. But Jackson wasn't listening to us anymore. He slowly got to his feet. His eyes were wide, but they looked entirely blank, like a blind man's. He looked right past us, staring intently into the pitch-black void behind us. My mom is crying. She's all alone. I can't leave her down there, he muttered. He took a step forward, straight into the dark. Jackson, stop! I lunged for him, but Miller threw his arm across my chest, holding me back with terrifying strength. It's too late, Tyler, he answered. Jackson stepped into the shadows. The beam of his flashlight danced frantically against the brick walls for a few seconds, and then it abruptly died. Just moments later, a wet, sickening sound echoed from the dark. It sounded like someone ripping a massive piece of raw meat away from the bone with a dull butcher knife. There was no other sound. Jackson didn't even scream, just a wet gasp and the horrific crunch of snapping bones. Lee dropped to his knees, clapping his hands over his mouth, but the sheer terror inside him broke through, and he let out a piercing shriek. Jackson! Huge mistake. Before Lee's scream could even finish echoing off the walls, dozens of different voices blasted back from the darkness. They were all mimicking Lee's exact voice, but distorted, warped into a demonic, mocking pitch. Jackson! 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 A thick, black liquid began dripping from the tunnel ceiling onto our heads. Our flashlights died completely. We were plunged into total, absolute darkness. The only thing left was the pathetic, dim beam of the small backup light in my pocket. When I switched it on and aimed it at the floor where Lee had just been kneeling, he was gone. There was no blood, no signs of a struggle. Just his flashlight dropped on the tracks, still rolling in a slow circle. I froze. I couldn't even draw breath into my lungs. Miller's hand, hard as iron, clamped down on my arm. We run. No matter what you hear, do not look back. Don't breathe too loud. Run. We bolted back toward the lift. We didn't hear the sound of footsteps chasing us. No, what we heard was much worse. It was the sound of bones scraping against concrete. The sound of something slithering along the walls and across the ceiling, keeping pace right above us. When we hit the heavy iron door at the entrance, Miller threw me through the opening, but he stayed on the other side, pulling the massive iron door shut from the inside. "Miller, get in here!" I screamed. He looked at me through the narrowing gap. For the first time, there was no fear on his face, just a bizarre, disturbing peace. "I've been a part of this place for a very long time, Tyler," he said. And then he smiled. But it wasn't Miller's smile. It was a wide, jagged, completely unnatural grin that stretched too far across his face. And behind him, out of the darkness, dozens of pale, hollow faces materialized. Every single one of them was wearing Miller's smile. He slammed the door shut. The heavy iron latch dropped into place with a deafening clang. I sprinted to the elevator alone, slamming my fist against the button like a madman. As the elevator doors began to slide shut, I heard the heavy iron door below violently splintering apart. All the way up the dark shaft, a chorus of whistles followed me. The sounds gradually shifted, morphing into my own voice, calling my own name up the shaft. "Tyler, Tyler, come back down." The official incident report stated that Jackson and Lee were caught in an accidental tunnel collapse. The search and rescue team spent weeks down there, but they never recovered the bodies. As for Miller, when HR went to pull the archives, they found out that no one with the last name Miller had ever been employed by the Transit Authority. The supervisor, his face completely bloodless, stared at me and tossed the paperwork across the desk. "Tyler, what the hell are you talking about? Only you, Jackson, and Lee went down to that line. There was no fourth man." I quit the job that very day. I didn't even go back to collect my final paycheck. Now I live far away from the city in a small town on the surface where the sun is always shining. I chose an apartment on the 3rd floor, just so I can have solid concrete beneath my feet instead of dirt. I live with a diagnosis of severe PTSD. Antidepressants and sleeping pills are my only real friends now. I leave every single light on at night. I am so terrified of the quiet that I keep either the TV or the radio running 24/7. Because whenever the world goes truly silent, my mind drifts back to that absolute void beneath the concrete. Taking the subway or even walking through an underground pedestrian tunnel is completely out of the question for me. If I catch even a faint whiff of damp concrete or rusty iron on the street, my throat tightens up and my heart hammers against my chest like it's trying to break free. I don't see ghosts. Nothing supernatural happens to me out here. But the second I close my eyes, I see Jackson smiling as he walks into the dark. I hear Lee's scream dissolving into nothingness. And worst of all, I see the missing man, Miller, wearing that strange, impossibly wide grin. If you're still here, you just made it through one of the scariest stories you will ever hear in the internet. Most people clicked away. You didn't. That means something. I want to know, and do you think this actually happened, or is it just a story? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this video gave you chills or kept you up at night, hit the like button. It takes 1 second and it tells me you want more stories like this. Subscribe to Mikey Blocks and turn on the bell, because the next story I found is even darker than this one. You don't want to miss it. Until next time, stay safe out there.